Good morning again, everybody. So today, pulls up notes. Today, I'm going to talk about silent illumination. So last week, I talked broadly about meditation method. And what I thought I would do, following on from that, I need to talk about specific meditation methods. So where to start? I decided I'll start with silent illumination. And then I realized as I was thinking about silent illumination, that's not a day. There's a lot in there. So I'm not going to get through it today. This is going to be like a little mini series on its own. But each of these, as with all of these, they'll be like self-contained. So what I'm going to do today, in order to understand silent illumination, what we first have to do is understand what it is. So before we can talk about it as a practice, what does it represent? And in simple terms, silent illumination is the natural expression of awakening. That's what silent illumination is. Silent illumination, many of you will know, comes down to it's a Chan practice. It's a coming out of the Chinese tradition. Comes mostly down to the West through Soto Zen and through the practice there that's called shikantaza, which is just sitting. But a lot of the time it is not taught with its doctrinal background, and so it's kind of not framed as well as it might be. So I want to frame it so we understand what this practice actually is, and then we'll get into, so what are the ways of practicing with this? As I said, it's the natural expression of the awakened mind. I'm going to start with a quote. So if you want to read about silent illumination, plug for Guagu's book, Silent Illumination. Great book. There's another one here, which is The Method of No Method, which is by his teacher, Chan Master Sheng Yen. That's also a wonderful book. But I'm just going to read from this is his text, and then at the back there are translations of Hongzhi, whose dates are 1057, no, 1091 to 1157. I think the late 11th, mid 12th century. I think it's 1093 to 1157. And he wrote just beautifully and poetically. And this was his practice. He's out of the Shaodong school, which became in Japan the Soto school. In Japan, excuse me, in China, then and today, these schools are not distinct. So these are practice traditions. We think about Pure Land, and in Pure Land in Japan comes down to these very distinct schools, and there are two very discrete Japanese Pure Land schools that really don't cross with each other. In Chinese Buddhism, Pure Land is just a practice. You chant Namo Amitofo, and you just chant that. And then you sit down after having chanted it, and you could engage in, so who's chanting Namo Amitofo? That's your Gongan, that's your koan. So these practices just merge. They're just tools. In Japan, they became discrete schools, discrete lineages, and that's the way they've come to us in the West, and that's been amplified. But the way to approach this, and this will come out a little bit as I talk, these are just practices within the overall framework of Buddha's teaching, which is the teaching of waking up. Going way back, Buddha said, I teach two things. I teach dukkha, suffering, discontent, vexations, and I teach the end of those things. That's it, folks. Waking up. The rest is all just tools, meeting people where they are. Right. So that said, Hongzhi was within a tradition that emphasized this particular practice of silent illumination. He also taught Gongan, koans, and one of the famous koan collections, which is, good Lord, what's it called? It's got equanimity in the title. He collected that. It's a collection of 100 koans, and he collected that. So these practices really do merge. And then Dogen, who is the famous founder of Soto Zen, he brought back with him, not only did he write his Shobogenzo, he brought back the Shinji Shobogenzo, which is a collection of 300 koans. So what I'm going to read here is just a piece by Hongzhi, who wrote very beautifully and very poetically, the Guagu's translation. It cannot be practiced nor actualized because it is intrinsically complete. The method of no method. You can't do this because it is intrinsically complete. Others cannot tarnish it. It's already perfect. You can't do anything to destroy it. It is thoroughly immaculate to its depth. Precisely at the place of immaculacy, fix your gaze upon it and thoroughly illuminate and relinquish everything. This is the natural state of the awakened mind. Experiencing this is clarity, grounding yourself firmly, you will see that birth and death originally have no root or stem, and that emerging and sinking are fundamentally without trace. So what this is pointing at is the direct experience of what in this tradition is called emptiness, groundlessness, no thingness. Recognizing, directly seeing everything is without substance, including this. Everything is impermanent. Everything is without its own marks or signs. If you practice just meditating with, this is actually one of the practices you can engage in. If you practice just listening, you practice just paying attention to what's going on with the faculty of hearing. The faculty of hearing is present, whether there's a sound present or not. Right? If it wasn't, then if you're in silence and a sound shows up, you wouldn't even hear it because the faculty of hearing wouldn't be present when it arose. Faculty of hearing is present all the time. So when the sound comes up, it registers it. And then what happens is, so I'm getting ahead of myself. I think I need to get ahead of myself a little bit. I was talking yesterday, and that'll be going on for a few months, about Yogacara, which is the school of mind only, consciousness only. And the fundamental point of that is everything is a creation of our mind, of mind. So this hearing lands on the eardrum, at which point electrical signals happen that send a signal to the brain, and the brain creates an image of a sound. That sound you're not actually hearing the sound that's out there. What you're hearing is that almost instantaneous mental overlay, which is a representation of what we now come to call sound. And there's, we have kind of a shared objectivity. Objectivity is a shared subjectivity. It's where we find language to talk about our own subjective experiences in ways that can bridge so we can share this subjectivity. That's what objectivity really is. So the sound, that sound has no inherent quality of its own. The sound of my voice that you've heard me speak before, so you recognize, oh, that's Gareth's voice. That's an English accent. Well, if I listen very carefully, there's some consonants knocked off, so it's not really perfectly English. It's but it's male, it's whatever, right? Those are not inherent characteristics of this voice. Those are characteristics that your mind is creating and overlaying from your own experience. So when you recognize that about everything you think you experience, what's left? Another quote from this book. This vast and open field is intrinsically present from the very beginning. That's what's left. That's the awakened mind. That's the stillness, the silence in silent illumination. And that's the common awakening experience across all of Buddhist teaching. It's like, there's nothing really there. Nothing really there. It's not nihilistic, absolutely not nihilistic, which we'll talk about in a minute. But there's nothing really there. You must purify and wipe away the various deluded conditioning and illusory habits. That's seeing through things clearly. So you can recognize what I just told you about the way hearing functions. And then the illumination, from recognizing this truth, the illumination is allowing the mind to flower and bring forth the multitude and the beauty of this world. Because it's still here. It's beautiful. But we recognize this is mind creating it. There's something here, right? Sure. But what we experience is this mind created world. So this is silent illumination. That's what this is. And it's just that natural experience of the awakened mind. So it very much builds on this Yogacara idea of mind only, consciousness only. Now, where we can go wrong with this method, where this can lead us astray, is we need a method to work through this. I talked last week about method and staying on your method, right? Without a method, if you just sit and let things fall away, everything can kind of become dull. And this is where I'll go to somebody else who's a contemporary of Guagu's, a contemporary of Hongzhi, which is Dahui. Dahui was the other crowd, the koan crowd, right? But he wrote somewhere, I'm pinned a couple of pages. Here we go. In Chan, there are no basic differences between the teachings of Deshan and Linji, or the Fayan and Chaodong schools. Basically saying we all teach the same thing. So getting hung up on these differences is not where it matters. He wrote this, and he wrote this similar thing in many places. I think this is what I want. No, that's not what I want. Oh, here we go. This is what I want. Nowadays, the false teachers of silent illumination present wordless silence as the ultimate principle, referring to it as the time of the primordial Buddhas, or that which came before the Kalpa of emptiness. Those teachers, not believing in the gate of awakening, regard awakening as a deception, as something secondary, as an expedient term, as a word to entice practitioners. So what that's about, there's a lot of conversation that Dahui and Hongzhi, those are two practices that didn't like each other, and Dahui is criticizing Hongzhi. Not true, because Hongzhi actually when Hongzhi passed, predeceased Dahui by about 5 or 6 years, Dahui managed his estate, basically came in and looked after all the monastic stuff that Hongzhi was in charge of. So they were very much collaborating. What Dahui is criticizing is a quietistic approach to this practice. So just sitting dully, just sitting without attention, just sitting and letting our mind go blank and that thinking that's what we're doing. That is not correct silent illumination. Correct silent illumination is to practice with attention sharp, which is to say, with a method. So this brings us back to the importance of having a method. It can be whatever method we like, but we're going to end up talking about silent illumination methods here. But it's central to this is the importance of having a method and staying sharp. So silent illumination, then to recap where I've gone so far, silent illumination is simply the natural expression of the awakened mind. The natural expression of the awakened mind lives in the wisdom of seeing no substance here or there, this vast and open field. You probably touch into this in your meditation practice a little. If you think of settling into your meditation practice, there are times when kind of the body drops away and everything's open. I've been leading some guided meditations on Thursdays, which kind of take us to this place. The body's open, and you can hear sounds, or you feel the body, the posture, the body on the cushion. Those, when things are completely open, when you've grounded, settled, relaxed, Those are not me experiences. There's just experiencing. So this is actually engaging in emptiness as a practice. Emptiness as a practice is emptying the sense of a me out of this, letting that just drop. And from that place, you naturally see the senses functioning and the cognitive processes functioning. So that vast and open field is that place of emptiness we settle into. So silent illumination is the direct experience of that with complete no self, and yet complete aliveness, complete alertness, complete engagement, actually, in all the sense functions, just without reifying anything. Having a profound not knowing. There's a sound. I don't know what it is. I truly don't know what it is. So I'm completely free to respond to what's really there. That's silent illumination. Foundational to engaging in silent illumination are some pretty basic things, but they really are very important. So we'll talk about them. And they're actually foundational to all practice, but they're particularly important here. The first is recognizing the importance of what Guagu calls feeling tone, which is not the same as the yoga. There's the Vedana. Feeling tone in this sense is what we went through when we went through that progressive body relaxation at the beginning of that last period. And I'd say, come back and check in with your feeling tone. Should be feeling content. If you're feeling content and somebody's phone goes beep, 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 or bling, 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 if you're feeling content, it's like, that's no big deal. They forgot to turn their phone off. If the mind spins up a little bit, it's like, I've done that before. Thank you for making me feel better about my own stupidity. I appreciate that. Right? I mean, it's no big deal. If your feeling tone is one of contentment, you just let it pass. If your feeling tone is one of irritation, it's like, God, nothing ever works out properly. I come here for peace and quiet, and you just spin this up and the story starts. If you're feeling angry or in a place where you're easily angered, if that's your feeling tone, the phone goes off. And it's like, oh, who's that? Whose phone was that? Somebody stand up and get your phone so I know whose fault this is. How dare you ruin my sit? Right? Your feeling tone fundamentally establishes how you experience the world. Fundamentally. So it's really, really important that we establish and maintain a healthy feeling tone. This is actually what that Yogacara class yesterday was all about. It's exploring these mental factors which become feeling tones and how can we work with them. So the one we want to establish for this practice is one of contentment. Metta practice really requires a feeling of gratitude because you're going to be directing energies towards other people, towards yourself and towards other people. And for that to work really well, the relationship being one of gratitude is a very healthy place to be. So really grounding yourself, but whatever your appropriate feeling tone, really grounding yourself and establishing that feeling tone and being firm in that feeling tone. And being sufficiently in tune with that feeling tone that if something comes up to disrupt it, we can check back in and reestablish that feeling tone. So the way we did that this morning was with a progressive body relaxation, starting at the top of the head and working our way down section by section. And what that does a number of things, but one of the things it does, it actually relaxes the muscles. And if you're completely relaxed, try being angry with somebody when you're completely relaxed. Sometime try it. Truly relax yourself and then try and get angry with somebody. You can't do it. It's just not possible. What has to happen is messages have to go from the brain to the body to get the body agitated, unless you have to let your body receive messages from outside and let it get agitated. And then as it starts to tighten and rise, then you can be angry. But if you're calm, if you're relaxed, it can't happen. So the first thing it does is to relax the body and therefore to start to bring forward this feeling tone of contentment, which isn't open to those kind of reactions, right? Um, the second thing that does is it drops the weight, which does itself two things. One is it firmly grounds us. There's lots of little things along the way which you can do. Raise your eyebrows, drop them, raise your shoulders and drop them, which is bringing us physically into our body. So being firmly in the body. This is where the world actually happens. The world happens with the senses that engage with the world. It takes us out of our head. That's the second thing that's happening. Is it's moving our energy away from the head. As you can say they're the same thing, but I'm looking at them separately. Because the world actually happens right here. What I see, what I hear, what I touch right now. When I engage the mind, that's not what's happening. That's representations of what's happening. We just talked about that a minute ago. I see something, I see a cushion. I'm familiar with browns and oranges and squares and circles, and that's all filed away. I've actually got an image of these cushions from previously being in here, so it's all really familiar to me. So I'm not seeing what's here, I'm seeing the representations of what's here, which brings to bear the time perspective. Oh, they're a little crooked. They weren't like that last week. There were more people in here, less people in here, more chairs in here, whatever. So this is creating time and space as reference for an experience set. It's not what's actually happening. These are constructs. So that's thing one, is to truly be relaxed. And then the part about being embodied and touching into the body and feeling the body is being sufficiently aware of the body that we are in touch with its feeling tone, we're in touch with its relaxed state or with its state, so that if something shifts, a wandering thought comes in and we start to feel ourselves drifting, start to feel emotions coming up, oh, let's check. Come back, relax, reground, so we can keep ourselves coming back to or staying in this more stable place. And then the practice of that allows us to take that off the cushion. So we're in the world. And if something looks like it's about to irritate us, we can go through this process. So we can approach it from a place of relaxation, which is going to be a lot more productive for us and for whatever we're experiencing, whatever we're about to encounter. Doesn't mean you're going to roll over and give in to something, allow stupid or bad things to happen. What it means is you will be calm, relaxed, and grounded, so you can actually be responding to what is there, not responding to the preconceptions that you are bringing up, that you are projecting onto what's there. And those are the problems. That's a bad person who's about to do bad things over here. And I've seen people like that bad person do these bad things before. And it makes me angry. You know exactly what's going to happen in that conversation. There's going to be an argument of some sort. We go in there relaxed, without those prejudgments. There's still bad things happening, but it may be something went the other way first. Maybe this person's had a really bad day. We don't know what's going on. Go in there with an open mind from a place of relaxation. It would be a completely different outcome. So staying in touch with the body allows us to continue to come back and not be spun off. Learning to stay in touch with the body. And it's important. It's very, in years gone by, 100 years ago, most people worked with their bodies. They worked in the fields. They worked in machine shops. They worked in the kitchens. But it was all manual work. We were in touch with our bodies. That's how we function in the world. In this day and age, we spend so much time in head work on jobs. We spend so much time on our phones, which is all up here. TV, movies, YouTubes, all head stuff. So we've trained ourselves not to be in touch with our bodies. Coming back in and learning to register our bodies and be able to work with our bodies is really important. Second thing that's really important, and this is another thing that comes out in this progressive relaxation, come back, check in with your feeling tone. Now bring great interest to bear on your method. This is what I talked about, wasn't last week, but a couple of weeks ago when I talked about method. Um, you need to be really interested in your method. Your method is fundamentally interesting. If you got a method that's appropriate, it's fundamentally interesting. It could be counting the breath, following the breath, could be silent illumination, could be chanting Namu Amitofo, Myoho Renge Kyo. Could be a visualization practice. There are lots of different meditation practices, lots of different methods. If you pick one that's conducive to your mental state, meta's a method as well. One that's conducive, that's appropriate to your mental state. If your mind's very active, you want a more active method. If your mind's calm, you want a more calm method. Then working with that method, that will be a reliable place to ground yourself, a reliable place to come back to, a reliable place to bring you this kind of peace. It will be a reliable path to bring peace. It will also be a reliable path to open up the opportunities for insight, to see clearly, to break through these illusions that cloud how we experience the world. I'm not going to repeat a lot of stuff on method, but being really interested in your method is really important, because if you're not interested in your method, you're not going to stay on your method. And if you don't stay on your method, wandering thoughts. If you're not on the method, where are you? Somewhere else. Probably not paying attention to where else, because if you were paying attention, you'd be on your method, because that's what you want to be doing. That's what you said you were going to do. So your mind's wandering off. And in Buddhist worldview, what that means is you have let all your past and harmful karma, born of beginningless greed, anger, and delusion, simply take over and drive the bus. That's what's going on. All your habits have come forward and they're now in charge. You're engaging in this practice precisely because that's what you want to not happen. So these wandering thoughts are actually a problem. So staying on the method is the second one. And then the third one is cultivating. Cultivating might not be the right word. Actually, I'm going to stay with cultivating. Cultivating or developing confidence in this practice. Confidence that this practice works. The word that's usually used for that is faith. And the word in Pali would be shraddha, means confidence and faith. But we in this culture think of faith as this blind faith. Oh, that person believes without any foundation. True faith is established based on experience. So I have complete faith in my wife, Beth, for instance, because over time we've learned trust. It's not something you want to do overnight, but over time we've learned the depth of trust that is possible within that relationship. And that develops great confidence that if I really needed something, I'd call Beth up and she'd help me, and vice versa, right? So the way we develop this confidence in our practice works the same, and that's important. And that's really the three jewels. It's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, which we come back to again and again and again. They're really the only completely reliable thing in your life. So with this, we're ready to actually engage in the practice of silent illumination. I'll give you one more metaphor, and then I'll finish talking and we'll have a conversation. The last metaphor for this silent illumination is the silence is like space, and the illumination is the stuff in the space. So think of this room. This is the silence. This is the awakened, the natural, vast and open field. Originally without walls. We could tear all the walls down, but we've stuck walls up. Right? The walls are kind of the furniture. We've got a bunch of stuff in here. We can move it all around. We can change its colors. We can get rid of half of it. We can bring new stuff in. We can change the flowers, and don't they look absolutely wonderful? Um, we've got this altar that was made by Solomon. It's absolutely gorgeous. We can do all sorts of stuff in here with the furniture. We can crowd it. We can create more space. So this awakened, the silent illumination is really analogous to stuff in space. Vast and open field with all the things in it, just flowering. And we have complete control in our lives to determine what shows up in the space of our vast and open field. And we do that through cultivating feeling tone. Nung, sixth patriarch of Chan, said, butchering the quote a little bit just to get to the point, he said, I see only my own faults. I do not see the faults of others. That's used throughout Chan, but it's very clear. To see the fault of another person or another thing is to impose a judgment on them that isn't actually there. That's me. That's me letting something other than this very sort of content feeling tone rise forth, and I'm encountering the world with a judgment, something different than me, something that's an X, something that's a Y, something that's a bad person. Well, there's somebody's spouse, there's somebody's child, there's somebody's BFF. They're not a bad person. They're just in relationship to me. That's what I'm experiencing right now. I do not see my own fault. Excuse me, I see only my own faults. I do not see the faults of others. So, with that mindset, we can completely change the furniture in the room. That shabby old couch becomes a precious family heirloom. That means so much to the other members of my family. And isn't it wonderful to see them so happy with that there? It just brings great joy. All right, I'll stop recording.